Is it immoral to have children? Some philosophers argue that it is. They claim that bringing life into the world almost always leads to suffering, and that the most ethical response is to stop having children altogether. If everyone followed this principle, humanity would eventually cease to exist, and with it human suffering. But what if this philosophy, meant to eliminate suffering across all life, were misguided, and actually guarantees far more of it? Anti-natalism is a school of thought which draws on the pessimistic philosophies of Arthur Schopenhauer and Philip Mainlander for inspiration. The moral imperative is simple: individuals should stop having children. For anyone who believes that life has inherent or sacred value, the argument fails immediately. If life is sacred, then creating it cannot be immoral. Antinatalism avoids this objection by adopting a consequentialist worldview, meaning it judges actions based on their consequences. Pleasure and pain are treated as the fundamental measures of value, just like in utilitarianism. David Benatar is a prominent antinatalist thinker today. His argument from asymmetry attempts to explain why life itself is a losing game. He begins from the view that pain has a negative moral value, and pleasure has a positive one. The asymmetry emerges in how we treat the absence of these feelings. The absence of pain is considered morally good because pain is such a potent negative value. The absence of pleasure, however, is treated as morally neutral. In other words, the very state of not suffering is judged to be morally good, even when no subject exists to experience that good. Not experiencing pleasure is judged as morally insignificant, unless someone is alive to feel that lack. This distinction is not a so-called objective claim, but it reflects a belief about harm that most of us in modern life do share. Once this argument is accepted, pain will always outweigh pleasure in moral calculations, even if it is small in comparison. Any action that reduces pain, even if it eliminates pleasure entirely, will be judged morally superior. This logic can be made more concrete in the following argument. Bringing a child into the world exposes them to both pleasure and suffering. Life involves effort, hardship, and endurance, so suffering or even boredom is likely to dominate far more of life than moments of clear pleasure. The second premise concerns risk. People generally avoid gambles where gains and losses are equal. Most would not risk $20 for the chance to win $20. Losses feel heavier than gains. This is well documented in prospect theory. Applied to reproduction, the conclusion follows that even if a prosperous life and a suffering life were equally likely, creating life would still be immoral. The risk of suffering is simply judged too great to justify the wager. Antinatalism therefore aims to save future generations from even having to confront life. The risk-averse logic mentioned in the gambling example is not arbitrary. It has a clear evolutionary basis. Predators will often avoid attacking prey capable of injuring them, even if the prey is smaller. A single wound carries the risk of infection and death. Survival favors animals that can assess when the potential gains vastly outweigh the potential losses. Many people have a knee-jerk reaction to antinatalism because, despite often agreeing with its premises, its conclusion feels profoundly wrong. At first, that reaction seems like nothing more than intuition, and intuition alone is rarely a sufficient response to a logical argument. The deeper problem only becomes clear when the argument is extended across long stretches of time. Let us accept the anti-natalist premises, assuming that suffering is the primary moral concern and that pleasure is secondary. Now, remove the short-term thinking. Higher intelligence has already emerged once through evolution, made manifest in humanity. Many animals already possess the preconditions for higher intelligence: theory of mind, memory, and social coordination. Under convergent evolution, it is entirely plausible that another intelligent, dominant species would arise in the future. If we disappear, this process does not stop, and it likely accelerates. This is because humanity acts as a restraint on rapid evolutionary progress in other species, due to its monopoly on resources and territory. This may sound cynical to anyone that does not believe that humans have a unique right to be custodians of the planet. However, most would concede that there are many people trying to contribute in the best way they can. This is not because humans are morally pure, or even unique, but because civilizations have learned to restrain the drives. Societies suppress unrestrained violence, they punish cruelty, they develop medicine, sanitation, and ethical norms. As Friedrich Nietzsche and Michel Foucault demonstrated, social cohesion was forged through generations by way of punishment, coercion, and violence. Any future intelligent species would be forced to repeat humanity's early history. There would be uncontrollable plagues before medicine, unchecked violence and revenge before law, unthinking cruelty before ethics. Eliminating humanity does not eliminate suffering. It discards all accumulated technologies, ideas, and systems. Any new species of similar social coordination would need to create all of these from scratch. Antinatalism also contains a fatal selection problem. Those who accept the philosophy choose not to reproduce, while those who reject it continue to do so. Over time, antinatalism removes its own moral adherents from the population and selects for the type of person it considers immoral. The only way to prevent this would be wide-scale enforcement of the philosophy's principles, requiring coercion, greater state control, and managed population reduction. Not only would this lead to some immediate suffering in a world resistant to authoritarianism, but it would also be wholly dependent on the commitment of those in control to abstain from having children. At this point we arrive at a more traditional philosophical objection. It is familiar ground, but still essential. One of the strongest challenges to antinatalism is to reject utilitarianism as the proper framework for organizing human life. Pleasure and pain are not fixed units that can always be measured, compared, or added up in a meaningful way. They are experienced differently depending on context, culture, and the overall vitality of a people. The same hardship can weaken one society and strengthen another. The same comfort can support growth or lead to decay. This suggests that both pleasure and pain are shaped by how a society understands itself and its goals, not just by their immediate sensations. Much of the suffering people experience today is not caused by existence itself, but by value systems that are short-sighted and poorly aligned with long-term human flourishing. If antinatalism is followed to its logical conclusion, rather than stopping at the surface, the result is disturbing. A managed reduction in population would inevitably cause suffering for those who remain. Allowing humanity to disappear entirely would leave evolution unchecked, ensuring that suffering re-emerges in another form. Despite hopes to slowly and painlessly end human existence, there will always be complications which disrupt this process. There is only one way to guarantee the permanent reduction of suffering. All life would have to be eliminated. A total annihilation of the planet in a single destructive act. For we who do not believe this outcome desirable, the antinatalist project becomes untenable, and so it is possible to turn our attention to productive ends once more.